In a town called Lystra, Paul and Barnabas experienced a case of mistaken identity. They healed a man there after they had preached the gospel. And this man, he was crippled from his youth. He jumps up. In Acts chapter 14, it says, "And when he heard Paul speak steadfastly, beholding him and perceiving that he had faith to be healed, said with a loud voice, 'Stand up right on thy feet.' And he leaped and walked. And when the people saw what Paul had done, they lifted up their voices, saying in the speech of Lycaonia, 'The gods are come down to us in the likeness of men.' And they called Barnabas Jupiter and Paul Mercurius, because he was the chief speaker. Then the priest of Jupiter, which was before their city, brought oxen and garlands unto the gates, and would have done sacrifice with the people." What a case of mistaken identity. Just because they've seen this miracle, they attribute it to their ideas that they had been raised with. These Roman false gods, Jupiter and Mercury. And instead of listening to what Paul and Barnabas had said, because the passage begins in Acts chapter 14 and verse 7, and there they preached the gospel. They had preached the good news of Jesus, but these people were so programmed with their old religious ideas, these pagan ideas, that they immediately jumped to the conclusion, hey, these are those gods that we've heard about come down in the form of men. Well, it says, when the apostles Barnabas and Paul heard of, they rent their clothes and ran in among the people, crying out and saying, "Sirs, why do you these things? We also are men of like passions with you, and preach unto you that you should turn from these vanities." He says, these things are vanities. They're useless. They can do you no good. These are the ideas of men. These are the false gods that have been created, mythological ideologies handed down since the time of Babel. And he says, you need to turn from these vanities unto the living God, which made heaven and earth and the sea and all things that are therein. And so there's the contrast. You worship these vanities. You believe in these vanities. They're useless. But we introduce to you the living God who is the Creator. Isn't it amazing that the very first pages of God's book, the Bible, He introduces us to the Creator as He creates from nothing. And He brings everything into existence. The heaven, the earth, the sea, and all things that are therein. That's everything. Everything in the heavens, God created. Everything on the earth, God created. Everything in the sea, God created, as well as creating the heavens, the earth, the sea Himself. It's the same message that you and I have to believe and must proclaim today. The fact that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. All things were made by Him. Without Him was not anything made that was made. And in Him is life. And that's the message that the apostles brought to the people. And so when this priest decides that he's going to make this sacrifice, Paul and Barnabas, they rip their clothes. They can't put up with this mistaken identity. They dare not let the people make the mistake of thinking that some false god has done this, because it's just not true. This miracle has come about by the one true and living God. And so they talk about Him. They said, in times past, He suffered all nations to walk in their own ways. Nevertheless, He left not Himself without witness, in that He did good and gave us rain from heaven in fruitful seasons, filling our hearts with food and gladness. And with these sayings scarce restrained they the people, that they had not done sacrifice unto them. They had to work really hard to help the people understand that it wasn't, that they weren't these false gods. God is good to all people, and He wants for all people to know Him. And that was what Paul and Barnabas were all about. It's what you and I ought to be all about as well, introducing people to the gospel of Jesus Christ, to the Creator. God bless you. Have a great day.